So that's the one thing that I would mark incorrect, even though technically it's not really an error, but right now we're gonna call it an error because I really want you to get in the habit of always doubling the root. There's one other error from chapter 5, and this might be good practice, because on the quiz on Wednesday, you're gonna have to look for some of these errors. We'll do some practice, some more practice with that too. Think about your voice pairs. So first voice pair, I usually start from bottom up. So I usually go bass and tenor. That's my first voice pair. They start at octaves. They go in contrary motion to thirds. Nothing wrong with that. That's power stuff. My second voice pair then I'm gonna do is the bass and the tenor. Bass and tenor. What's the interval from C to G? Perfect fit. Then they move in contrary motion to a G and a D. What's the interval from a G to a D? Perfect fifth. So they start perfect fifth, they end up at perfect fifth. This is perfect fifth in contrary motion. So right there would be, that would be a definite no.
It also happens in the bass and soprano. No.
No.
Because E and G
C,
are.
yeah, different notes.
Or yes, E and.
They do end up at a perfect fifth. Now, if the soprano's leaping down into that, or leaping up into that perfect fifth, then say you had a I don't know, even though B's not in the chord. Say you had a B here, and you went B up to D, and the bass went C up to G. What's the error there?
That's a direct fit.
That's a direct fit, right? Remember, the bass and soprano moving in the same direction. The soprano leaps, and the resulting interval is an interval of a fifth, or an octave. That would be the direct octave, direct fifth, direct octave. So, might be good to again, we'll do some review in class here, but between now and Wednesday, go over chapter 5, a little bit the tail end of that, where it talks about all those errors that we're trying to avoid. So this is wrong because we want to go in the we go up with the bass. So we go up to B, G goes up to B, and E goes up. Again, you know you're going in the right direction if you don't have any leap bigger than a third. If any of the voices leap bigger than a third, then you went in the wrong direction. Okay. Questions about this method? Alright, then the third method we talked about, we kind of already covered a little bit, is the tertian method. Alright, tertian method is very similar to the common tone method because you look for the common tone. So keep the voice in, third method, keep in the same voice the tone that is common. Alright. But the difference being that whatever voice has the third of the first chord is going to leap to the third of the next chord. And then the third voice that you have, whatever note is left, they just move by step. It should work out perfectly. They should be able to move by step. Which direction, just whatever note is left, just go by step. It's going to work out every time. Alright, so the common tone again is G. We're going to keep G where it's at. G, G, B, B, be in my alto. This time though, the third of the chord, of the first chord is my E, and I'm gonna jump to the third of my next chord. Now, the jump really depends, like this is where you kinda just have to be careful about, cause I can leap up, or I can leap down. If I leap up though, I end up with a space in it. So I know then that the leap up is the wrong direction, the leap down takes me to a B, which is closer to the G then with my alto. And then the note I'm missing, the only note that's left is D. C moves by step to the D. And now I have the tertiary method. So again, what you were asking about earlier, if we went in the opposite direction or went a different way, so got the common tone C rather than going down by step, C goes up by step. The note that's missing is B. That means then that the soprano has to leap to get to that B. And instead of doing common tone, we would have done the tertiary method. Anybody remember the one caveat about the tertiary method that I said the book doesn't mention, but I would, it doesn't work if you, yes.
It doesn't work if the third is in the alto?
Correct. If the third is in the alto part, you just can't use tertiary method because the alto will end up either like trying to leap over a voice or under a voice, so you'll get cross voices, or it'll leap too far away from a voice and you'll have a space in there. So don't do the tertiary leap if the third is in the soprano. Oh, I'm sorry. If it's in the alto, don't do the tertiary leap if the third is in the alto. If it's in the soprano or the tenor, it works fine. And again, all these methods kind of have a different result to them. It's a very subtle result, but it can be helpful for, say, writing out your chorale projects, or if you're like really wanna be thoughtful about what you're doing. So if I'm like thinking about my soprano part and I'm going from my 4 chord to my 1 chord, do I wanna move down by step to the next note? Do I wanna move up a third to get to the next chord tone? Or do I wanna skip down to the B down a fourth? This tertiary method is good because you go from open structure to a closed structure. And it's a great way to kind of think about, like, textually, what you want to do with the overall kind of big picture. Most of us though, I would have been right there with you in freshman theory. We just want to get to the next chord and make sure that we do everything, like get all the right notes and don't have any parallel fifths or parallel octaves and that kind of business. So, just like my first method I kind of go to is usually the common tone method. It's sort of tried and true, easy because you take care of one note right away, and then the other two move by step. It's very smooth. You won't have any issues, but it's again not the most creative method, or it doesn't like give you a whole lot of movement. Question?
Yes, so okay, let me see if I get this. So common tone, basically the bass and the alto are the same note. You double both.
In this case, it's not, I mean, it depends on which voice has the common tone. So this G could be in the tenor, the G could be in the soprano. You look for the common tone, so the first chord is C, E, G. Second chord, G, B, D. Common tone between the two chords is G.
Oh,
So
okay.
in this case, the alto has the common tone, but the G could have been in the soprano, G could have been in the tenor. You look for that common tone in that state.
Oh, so you look for the common tone off of the Roman numeral then. Okay.
Off of each chord. Yep. And then the other ones move by step. So let's go through a couple exercises from the textbook, or from the workbook, that we skipped over. We're gonna back up a few pages from your homework. Just wanna make sure that we understand everything, we're doing it right. How about number 3 here? That's a good one, it's got a lot on. Sorry, this is page 43. If you have your workbook, page 43, number 3. This one right here. And why don't you guys, a couple minutes, try it on your own. If you wanna work with somebody next to you, that's fine too. I'll leave this up for a second.
Basically building myself to people.
Blake?
Yeah.
Or, I would,
Okay, Roman numerals.
might wanna take a picture of that.
Before I,
Oh.
Might wanna take a picture of that before I,
yeah. So, in each slide, it's a 6 holes.
cause it has all 3 methods right next to each other, so you can kind of compare.
Yeah. So Roman numeral. The same.
We could do the common code. They can both move on this step.
Yes.
After class, I'll show you a card that you can sit. So basically, sits on her bench and turns off all 8 steps. 5 seconds of heart attack.
Let me know if you have any questions.
It was
Same double letter.
We really only have 2 choices, or a choice. Yeah. So it has to be C in the alto and A flat in the tenor or the cross chord.
So, Blake, why don't we try this one out?
Okay.
So that we're another, this is common code.
Yeah, what you said it was page 40 what?
Page 43.
In the workbook or the work okay.
E flat D. Since this is common code, the movement step is up. Yes. either be similar motion or maybe.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
So one chord is E flat.
Which one are we looking at?
Number 3.
Number 3. Okay.
Then we have the we have both B flat.
Okay.
Similar motion.
Let's see. That unintended part is progression involves roots of perfect fourth and perfect part. Use one of the 3 methods. Online and A3 words.
I wrote it out for you.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Hold that over there. Yeah. That's my homework anyway.
Okay.
That's cool. So if we need that, but.
All right.
Wait.
So the 3 chord is already written out for you.
Yep.
What notes are in the 3 chord?
So we got an F.
No.
Oh, is that G?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Could
my
be
bad.
my handwriting.
No, you're good, you're good. So we got a G, C,
No, that's on the space, or that's just the space above.
oh, B,
Yeah.
B, and then we got D,
Yes.
D and a G,
Yeah.
D and a G.
All right. So that's your first chord. That's your 3 chord. All right. Now the other ones we have to figure out. So
Right.
what note is 6? Well, actually the bass will help you out.
So if it's an E, so C.
Yeah.
So we need a C, well,
There's things I have to remember, like these fucking
so we need a C and a G.
And then your 2 chord.
oh, I said that.
So we need an F, an A, and a C.
There you go.
And then,
All right. So now I'm going to add one more step to what you just did.
so that means we
Yes. Go through and all the accidentals. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So, what type of movement do we have from G to C? What's that interval?
A fifth.
Yes. So that means we can use one of those 3 methods that I just talked about. So it can be
Not similar motion.
Why not?
Well, just off the bass moving.
No, if the bass moves a 5th, you can either use common tone, similar, or tertia method. You can use any of the 3.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I just wasn't going to use it because it was going down versus up.
Doesn't matter which way the bass goes.
For the fifth?
Yep.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
I
So
mean,
I
it's
guess
either-
just if it moves a fifth either way,
Yep.
either direction.
Either direction, or a 4th in either direction.
Okay, these are either direction. Okay.
The direction of the bass will determine which way the top 3 voices move, like for the rest of the methods. But if it's moving in a 4th or a 5th up or down, it doesn't, like, you can use any of the methods.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So,
So then,
if, again,
okay,
my
then
first,
I'll go with similar then for that.
well, my first usually just go to is common tone.
Common. Okay.
Yeah. So what's the common tone between the 2 chords?
So we got what, a C there?
Well, you got the chord there.
Right, but I'm just saying we got a C and we got a C and a G. So if we got a C and a G.
Well, between this chord, C, E flat, G, and this chord, G, B, D, what's the common tone?
G.
Okay. And which
So-
voice has the extra G
Well,
in this chord? Which voice has the G?
the soprano already has the G.
Yep, and the soprano stays.
Correct.
So that would tell me that common tone is what we're going to use because that is the common tone, and the chord, the note stays in that same voice.
Okay.
So that's your common tone. So
So
then
then-
the other two voices are just going to move to the nearest note, which would be a step away.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So then that means.
Well, we already got our bass, so yeah, our
So
tenor.
B would go to C.
Yep. And D.
And then D goes to E.
Yeah. There you go. That's your common tone.
Okay.
All right, so we use common tone then, because there's a line above, yeah, right there, and that's where you put what method you used.
Okay.
All right. So let's check out the next one.
So the next one. Fourth,
So we can use any of the three methods again.
but we have we got an F, and we have an F already. So
So if you want to do it that way, you took care of the first F is in the bass, the second F is in the soprano. So we need an A flat and a C.
and since it's doubled already, then we can go with well, let's see if we can do common tone.
Yeah,
again.
see if you can do common tone.
But we already got those are already doubled. So
What note is the common tone between C, E flat, G, and F, A flat, C?
wait, no. Okay, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Not okay.
Yeah, not what note is double. Which one is the common tone between the two chords?
Oh, okay. Then C would have to be the common tone
Alright.
if we were going to use
Yeah,
common
if
tone.
we're going to use common tone, so let's give it a try.
Right.
So which note or which chord or which voice has the C?
The tenor.
Yeah, so keep the C where it's at. All right. Now that cancels out that C.
But then that means we have to make
We need
the alto a A.
we need the alto, the A.
So they have to go down.
Has to go down because it can't go above the soprano.
Correct,
right?
because that's
but,
cross.
But what happens if we go to an A that's below the C?
Oh, then it's crossing.
Yeah. So I don't think common tone is going to work
So
here.
common tone's not going to work, right?
All right. So
Okay.
what's our method two? Out of the three methods, okay, common tone, what's method two?
Similar motion.
All right, so let's try similar motion. That means the top three voices all do what?
Move in the same direction.
All right, we already have the soprano moving down.
Right.
So if the top three voices are all going to move in the same direction, they're all going to move down then. So
Right.
what's E going to move to?
To C.
Okay,
So E's going to move to C.
and then C will move down
C
to?
moves down to A.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. Now they all moved in the same
The same direction. Right.
And you did the similar motion.
Similar motion, right. Okay.
Is that making a little more sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good. I'm gonna see
Okay.
how the rest of the class is doing.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
All right, let's see how we did.
So let me try. I'll try.
Um,
A second.
volunteer for the first chord. Start.
So we use the common tone method.
Okay.
The G is our common tone.
G's common tone. So what notes are in our sixth chord in D and E flat?
It would be C, E flat, G.
C, E flat, G. So the C is already in the bass. The G is already in the soprano. We need to go to C with E flat. You say common tone because soprano already has it. Now we're going right. So then the other two voices should move by step. Which direction are they moving in?
Upward.
Upward. So D moves up to E flat. E flat moves up to C, and we use the common tone method there. If you wrote, one, that would work as well. Right. Do we have anything different?
Yeah, Mr. Fisher, these methods, they're being wall on the safety.
I bet. Let's come back to yours. Let's keep going with this, and then we'll try yours out. Because that's not a bad, that's actually a good thing to talk about. All right, then moving forward from there, those of you that did this method, common tone method, somebody else want to volunteer, what happens next? Or now I'm told. Ava, Alan, what do you guys do next? Okay, so what notes belong to our two chord in the key of E flat? F flat. Yep.
It's F A flat.
F A flat C. So we have our F in the bass, we have our F in the soprano, and if it's similar motion, that means the top three voices all move in the same direction. In this case, which direction are they moving in? Down. Kinda helpful that the soprano already gave us that clue, alright, but even then, the bass is moving up before, so that means the top voices are moving against the opposite direction. So the E flat will move down to what note? Okay, down to our C. And the C will move then to our last note, A flat. And then this is our similar motion. Alright, does anybody have anything different other than that to do there? Alright. Leo, moving to this, 5 chord. What notes belong to our 5 chord in the key E flat?
In key of E flat, that would be B, B flat, B F.
Yep. Alright, we have our B flat in our bass, we have our F in our soprano, we need another B flat and a D.
I doubled up the B flat in the tenor line and then kept the D. Actually, no, I went up to a D in the alto line.
Alright.
So that would be similar motion, I think, the second one.
Well, you have two voices moving in similar motion, but our
Oh,
third
it would
voice-
be it would be the first one.
common tone. So our common tone is in the soprano, other two voices moving by step. Alright, anybody have anything different there? Questions about that? Alright, Joey, our last chord.
I did not get to that.
Well, let's see if we figure it out yet. Alright, what notes are in our one chord in the key E flat?
E, G, and B flat.
Alright. E flat, E and B flat. We have our E flat in our bass, we have our E flat in our soprano. We need a G and a B flat. When I'm starting off, first thing I kinda do is just go one method at a time and see how it works. What's the common tone?
B flat.
Alright, so if we tried the B flat, that's in the tenor, right? So we keep the B flat right where it's at. I need a G. That would mean the alto would have to go to a G. If I go to a G above the soprano, crossing voices. If I go to a G below, I'm crossing voices with my tenor. Common tone's not gonna work here. So, start again. Method 2, similar motion. Alright, all top 3 voices are all moving in the same direction. If you can't remember which direction, the maybe soprano's moving down, so I would mean the other 2 voices are gonna move down. D would move down to which note?
B flat.
D flat. And B flat will move down to the remaining note, then G. Looks like similar motion method work here. And we did it that way. Alright, questions? Yeah, Lynn.
in the last measure, you could, what I did was I merged the soprano and alto lines, so it was root third, root.
Yeah.
Would that be okay in this scenario?
Yes, because in the final chord, you can triple the root and have the third, or one third. Again, as long as you don't have the space in there, that's less than an octave between there, that's fine, or an octave or less. But, yeah, for the last chord, can triple the root, rather than having a complete chord, that's totally fine. And so what you did, and this is something we haven't really discussed too much, but scale degree 7 is the D, and to give E flat, pick up your E flat major scale degree 7 is D, tendency of scale degree 7 is to do what?
Resolve to
Move up to 1. So you actually, by doing that, kind of resolve that tendency tone. Now, and that's our rule, remember 7 always has to go to 1? Here's the bending of the rules. That will always be the case in the soprano. 7 always has to go to 1. Remember, soprano, bass always kind of stand out. Inner voices get a little bit muddy, a little bit harder to pick out. You can kind of break that rule. 7 doesn't have to go to 1 in a tenor or an alto voice. Always has to go to 1 though in the soprano or the bass. So yes, if you like the sound of it, like say you played it out, you're like, yeah, that makes sense to me. I want that tenor to go up to 1. Or if you like the sound of the complete chord with the 5th, you have the tenor kind of break the tendency, go against that rule, and go down to the 5th. Thanks for bringing that up. That was good. Any other questions?
So for any given chord, it's not the case that each one of those methods is guaranteed to get a valid result.
Correct.
There will be instances that we ran into here where we just plain can't use a method.
Correct.
Because it violates any other
Yeah.
spacing rule,
That-
voice crossing, or whatever.
Right. Now, if you really wanted to use, say, common tone method here, you would have to change the soprano part.
You have to go back to the previous, well, yeah, in this case it's guaranteed.
Yeah, in this case, it's given to us. So, but in a lot of cases, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, not tricky, but the book will, like, say in the directions, write a good soprano part and then fill out the rest of the voices. Well, that works. Or you can just do 1 chord at a time, kind of like what we're doing. I would think it depends on how you want to compose. Sometimes when I'm composing, I'm thinking of a melody first. And then that gives me my chord, like I go back and I figure out chord progression. Sometimes I figure out the chord progression first, and I try to compose a melody over that existing chord progression. So in this case, there's not a right or wrong to it, but I think in this style, people are thinking in a more melodic sense, so maybe thinking of the melody first would give you, more creative approach. The only problem with it is that we have so many limitations right now, because like one thing we're dealing with only root position chords, we're only dealing with triads, there's a lot of restrictions. So you could go ahead and write your melody out first, but you're gonna have to be willing to compromise a few things and not have to, there's gonna be times where you have to change maybe something in the melody because you can't do something different with the inside voices because of the limitations of what we've been taught so far. There might be ways later that we can bend something or figure a different way out, maybe do an inversion with the bass, do something else, but right now, everything being in root position, we're kind of limited to what we can do.
If you approach the writing, for example, the chorale plagiate, the other approach, instead of writing out the melody and then performing, you just do chord by chord, for example.
Yeah.
It sounds like there will likely be situations where you encounter a brick wall, that in order to steer yourself out of it, you gotta go back a couple chords and make a different choice.
Yep.
Because you put yourself
That's
in
why I
a
say
position.
use a pencil. Yes, that is exactly right. Everybody in this class will experience what Matt just said. So you get all the way here, and then you realize, like maybe your two voices are too close together, and there's nothing you can do other than to go back far enough where you can separate the voices a little bit farther apart, so that by the time you get to that last chord, they're not crossing.
In your experience, what's the most amount you'll have to go back in order to unwind? Is it typically 2 chords, or do you have to go back another measure and a half, or?
Depends on, like, it depends on the air, like, how, I mean, I wish I could give you a good answer to that, but no, you never know. Good questions, cause I would bring that up at some point, but I would forget, so, that you're reminding me of that. Let's try, Matt, I like, that you tried a different, method here right from the start. So you said you did tertian method, so, common tone stays, what's the third of your first chord, the 3 chord?
B flat?
The B flat, so it's gonna leap to the third of our next chord, which is
Down to the E flat.
down to an E flat, okay. Which means then we still need a C, and that would be an alto. Right, we use tertian. Alright, then going to our next chord,
And then I try to do the common tone.
okay. So what's the common tone?
It's the C.
Is the C. Alright, C, and now we need an A flat, so.
E flat. And then the voice crossing. Yeah, E flat.
Well, the E flat is in the tenor, that's the third of this chord. If it left up to the A flat here,
Oh, but then I'm not doing the common tone.
nope, you're doing what?
Something else.
Well,
Not
we
wrong.
have the third,
One of the other ones.
we have the third of this chord jumping to the third of that
So
chord,
it's another tertian.
another tertian method.
Right, but if I wanted to do common tone.
If you wanted to do common tone, you could. I mean,
Cause then I have to cross voices.
well, plus your soprano's moving down, your soprano should have moved up to A flat, and then the E flat would have moved up to F, and then you would have been able to do common tone. But because the soprano was already given to you, you couldn't do that. Now, if you, like, again, if you wanted to try, say, similar motion method, you also couldn't have done that, because then your tenor would have gotten below your bass. So the only method at this point that would have worked would be your tertian method. Now, there is another rule again that the book doesn't talk about, and I'm a little bit, I would just want you guys to be aware of it. I'm not gonna mark people down, but there is a thing in this style of writing that if your tenor goes below where your bass is gonna go, it's like thinking ahead, so here the bass kind of jumps over where the tenor was. We wanna avoid those kind of situations as well. Because basically the tenor and the bass are kind of getting too close together, and it's getting, remember when we put all the chord notes of the chord in the bass part, it gets too muddy. So you want some separation between that tenor and the bass, and when the bass jumps over where the tenor was, it gets confusing to the listener about like whose line is happening, or what part is happening. So, but for this assignment, I wouldn't feel, wouldn't mark it wrong. I just, yeah, something to point out at this point. But yeah, you can still get out of this, Matt, by doing 2 tertian methods in a row. And if that's the case, then we're kind of back where we were. We have again the common tone. Do we do another tertian method?
It's the A flat, which we're gonna go to the D.
Yep. Now, if we went up
Oh
to
my
a-
gosh.
if we went up to a D, we go there.
Push the alto up.
And let's see, the alto needs to go to a B flat, so
Close.
we're crossing voices. So what if we had the alto go down to B flat and the tenor jump down to the D? Instead. We have the third of this chord jumping to the third of the next chord. We have stepwise motion and common tone. I think that works. The only thing that, with the tertiary lead, you gotta be careful about, another thing that you have to be careful about, is just watch the interval of the lead. So here, B flat to E flat, that's a perfect fourth, E flat to A flat, perfect fifth. E flat to A flat is a perfect fourth. A flat to D, or D up to A flat, is a diminished fifth. Nothing wrong with diminished fifths, except for what's the next thing that, with a diminished interval, you have to do what after?
Doesn't it have to be a perfect fifth after?
It has to move by
Oh,
step
that's
in the opposite direction. So the D would have to move up to the E, which is fine, and then maybe the B flat to the G, which is a little low for our alto, but we can make it work. Probably A again is probably the bottom of the range, but if you did that. Now, do we use a method here? No. When you triple the root, you're not using any of the methods, so you just leave that blank at that point, because you didn't really use it. Now, if I don't like the sound of my tenor, like leaking as much with the bass, then I would use a different method here. Use common tone method, have the C go up to the D, have the A flat move up to the B flat. Now I have smoother motion with my tenor, had a couple leaps at the beginning, but now the tenor's smoothing out. And we'll have them use the similar motion on the finishes. So, yeah, that,
So, to me, what Carter was doing, that's what my mind's doing too, if you got the diminished fifth. Even if it does, then those stepwise, and so you satisfy that test, but you then have to check and see whether you've got an equal fifth involving the bass.
no, because unequal fifths would be a fifth and a fifth here, moving to a fifth and a fifth here. What we're talking about was the interval of the melody. This is a diminished fifth from the melodic interval, as opposed to the harmonic interval, which would be like F to C is a fifth, and then say B flat to F here is a fifth. Good. I know it starts to get kind of confusing when we're talking about all these different rules too, trying to keep it all straight. I understand. All right, questions? All right, let's try. I hate having such a long test. Let's look at roots that are a third or a sixth apart. This is where it gets a little bit easier. Roots that are a third or a sixth apart, there's only one method. And that method is, there's two common tones between the two chords. So if there's two common tones, those two voices stay right where they're at, and then the third voice is just gonna move by step to complete the chord. Whenever the bass is a third away from the next chord, or a sixth away, there's always gonna be two common tones. Alright, so say we're in E flat. And we have a 1 chord moving up to a 3 chord. E flat to G. E flat. And G is the root there. Carter, what notes are in our 1 chord for E flat?
It would be E flat, it would be G, and then it would be E flat.
Okay. And Carter, what notes are in our three chord.
E flat, and
E flat, and D. Alright, so what are our two common tones between the one chord and the three chord lick?
Either G or B flat.
G and B flat, two common tones. So G and B flat, and G
Oh
and
yeah,
B
G
flat.
and B flat, yeah.
Yeah. So, however I write this first chord out, however I voice it, doesn't matter which part gets which notes. So I'm just gonna randomly do this. Put a B flat there, put a B flat there, put a G here. Okay. We said the two common tones are G and B flat. So I
Right.
gotta identify where those are at. We said my tenor has a G, my soprano has the B flat. So they are the common tones. They're gonna stay. So when I move to the next chord, then in this case the tenor's gonna double the bass. That takes care of my second G, and the soprano will stay on the B flat. That takes care of that note, and the only note that's left
Alto.
is the D, and if you get it right, it should move by step.
Oh.
If we move, say, down a six. So 3 to 6. Or down a six. Oops, down a six. I don't know if you can do this, but yeah. Alright. Matt, 4 notes along to our 5 chord in the key of B flat. Okay. There you go. So B flat, and then what? D, F. Alright, we have our first B flats in our bass. What are the two because the bass is now moving down a sixth. We're gonna have two common tones. What are our two common tones? B flat. B flat. Yes. So, which two voices here have our B flats and B? Or B flat, B. Okay, so those two voices stay. B flat, B, and the only note then I gotta fill in is the F, which again should move by step. Makes it really simple.
So since there's only one method for moves by 36,
Yeah.
you're always guaranteed to work.
Always guaranteed to work. Yes. Now, I have had students go, I would say, go rogue and try, like, I think it's more that they forget that they're supposed to just use two common tones. I don't think it's that they're essentially trying to do anything that much different. There are different, like, there is, like, other possibilities sometimes. Depends on sometimes it just depends on the situation. But say if we had the B flat, jump up to D instead of staying on the common tone. If that's the case, you just have to watch out for parallel octaves, parallel fifths, direct octaves, direct fifths, contrary octaves, contrary fifths. You have to just be aware of it while you go to the next chord. So, is there a way to do it? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. D would have to go, let's see. This may work, it may not. Depends on the situation. So we have a B flat in the bass, we have our D in the soprano, I need another B flat and an F. So I guess maybe alto would go up to the F. And that means the tenor would have to go up to the B flat. Alright, completed my chord. Did I do anything wrong? Where?
it would be the alto and the soprano.
Alto's at,
Sorry,
that's a that's a six. And this is a six. So we have parallel six. Six are okay. Maybe I did do anything wrong. I think I did wrong. Carter?
Oh, sorry. We have parallel fifths between the tenor and the alto.
Tenor and alto is a tenor is a G, alto is a D, that's a perfect fit. Tenor is a B flat, alto is an F, that's a perfect fit. We also have perfect fits between our bass and our alto, which is also a perfect part. And we have contrary octaves between our bass and our tenor. So a lot of things that went wrong by going rogue this time. Doesn't mean that will always happen. You know, there could be a different way. I still want to spend time right now to try to figure it out. But yeah, there could be other ways you could go about it. Just this method, tried and true, you won't have any error.
Guaranteed to work and guaranteed to give you no errors. Even if other solutions that don't follow the rule give you valid chords that don't have errors.
Yeah.
Here's an example where it gives you an invalid.
Yeah. Well, invalid result. Yeah.
Right, yeah. A chord with errors.
Yes. So just be careful, I guess, if you're gonna go rogue. Be careful. That's my advice. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Makes it tougher for me to grade, because I'm looking for one thing, and then you give me a different thing, and I just have to go through it. Then that forces me to go through every voice pair and look for all these errors, which again, I can do. But if I know that you're doing a method, I don't have to look for that stuff. I know you did it right. Roots a second apart. Again, another really straightforward method. That means the bass is just moving up a step or down a step. Roots that are a second apart. So if the bass moves up a step, the top three voices are all going to move opposite, so they're all going to move down. If the bass moves down a step, the top three voices are going to move opposite, and they're all going to move up. And like they just move to the nearest chord tone, which means you're only going to be moving an interval of a second or a third. Anything larger than a third means you went in the wrong direction. And again, pretty straightforward. It's not like contrary to the bass. If you don't want to think of it that way, the top three voices are moving contrary to the bass. So again, we stay in E flat, and I move my two chord, which is F, F, A flat, and C. I'm going to move my bass up a step to F. Alright, which means the top three voices all do what? Move down. E flat will move down to the nearest note, which is A flat. E flat will move down to the nearest note, which is C. And the only note that's left is F, means the tenor will double the bass. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Like I was talking about, like Matt brought up before. What happens, say, if the bass does this? What should the top three voices do? Yeah, and what happens with our tenor? It goes below our bass, right? So this is where, like Matt was talking about, I might have to back up a step. I don't want my tenor that close to my bass. I'm gonna have to revoice this first chord. And I know I spent all that time working on that other one, but I gotta erase this one too. And I gotta make sure my tenor is farther away from my bass so I don't get that cross voice happening. So, I don't know, let's give them an octave away. That's pretty far apart. And then we can give the alto to G and then soprano to B flat. Now I gotta go back to my first one, go into my F chord. Everything's gonna still move down. E flat will move down to A flat. G will move down to F. E flat will move down to C. And now my bass moving up by step again, which is my G chord. G feel confident that those two voices are far enough apart. Alright, there is a little, something extra with this, the bass, bass is, when the bass moves a second. Alright. For the most part, what we did there is almost always gonna be the guaranteed result, or what you're gonna wanna do. Bass moves up by step, top three voices move opposite things. Bass moves down by step, top three voices move opposite things. Here's the one instance where you have to do something a little different. And it does come up. This is a relatively common progression. It's called the deceptive progression. We talked about it before. We want, when we hear, say, we hear the 5 chord, wants to go to 1. Deceptive progression means it's deceiving our ears. Alright? Goes someplace that we didn't expect it to go. So that's where the 5 goes to 6, or 5 goes to some chord other than 1. Typically, though, what it does is goes to 6, but it doesn't always happen. In a major key, it means a major 5 chord going to a minor 6 chord. In a minor key, it means a major 5 chord going to a major 6 chord. So in C minor, we have a 5 chord, we go here to A flat instead of A minor. A flat major instead of A minor. Alright. In terms of voice leading, that's where we have a little bit of special problem because of that one time. Remember I talked about scale 3/7, wanting to go to 1? And if it's in the soprano, it always has to go up. Alright. So in E flat, let's say in E flat, 5 to 6. Our 5 chord in E flat is B flat. Flat E F. Our 6 chord is C, E, flat, G. Alright? So my bass is moving up by step. And I have my first chord voiced like this. B flat, B flat, E, F. Alright. Going to my second chord, bass. Bass moving up by step means the top 3 voices all move down. Right? Because that's what we talked about. C or D will move down to C, F will move down to E flat, B flat will move down to G. I completed my chord, did everything that the method said. I should be good, right? And then you see, you turn this in, and then I give it back to you, and I mark an error. What error would I have marked?
Parallel fifths. Parallel fifths.
No,
Wait,
no
no.
parallel fifth. Where do you think you see parallel fifth?
I thought I saw it in the sopranos and altos, and I looked at it and it wasn't.
Yeah, it's a 6.
Yeah.
It is parallel motion, but it's parallel 6. Yeah. No, that's not the error.
Second soprano goes to the.
Yes. Scale degree 7 is the D. 7. It needs to go to 1. Leading tone always goes to 1, right? But we didn't do that here. But I followed the method right. So you're like, what? Like, I did something wrong, but I did everything I was told I was supposed to do. Okay, that's what the rest of this paragraph talks about. When we have that happen, the only thing we can kind of do is, like, which rule do we break? Which one, like, I guess not rule, but method do we break? Like, 7 to 1 is more of a rule. This is more of a method. So we're going to break the method. We're going to modify the method, if you will. And instead of D going down, we're going to have D go up to E flat. All right? flat G, still have a complete chord, but instead of doubling my root, instead of two C's, I have two E flats, which is 2/3. Is there anything wrong with that? No, but it goes against everything I've been saying about doubling the root.
Except that it's a key, right?
It makes it acceptable, and again, you'll find that Bach doesn't always double the root either. It's just that right now, in order for these methods to work, you have to have the root doubled. If you don't have the root doubled, now moving on from this 6th chord, I won't be able to do any of the methods because I don't have the root doubled. Doesn't mean I can't go to the next chord, it just means I can't use a method, which means then I have to like look at it carefully to make sure I don't have any parallel octaves, parallel this, direct octave, all that good stuff. But yes, in a 5 to 6 progression, call that the substance progression, 7 in the soprano has to go to 1. Now, what happens if the 7, the scale degree 7 is not in the soprano? So we have the bass moving up by step, top voices all move down, E flat will move down to G, F will move down to E flat, D will move down to C. We all move down instead of, well, because the bass is moving up. In this case, scale degree 7, D is in an inner voice. I can get away with not doubling the 3rd, and I can continue to double the root, and I'm good to go. Or I could, if I choose so, still double the 3rd, because I really wanted that tenor to go up to scale degree 1. I wanted to keep that tendency tone where it's at and doing what it should do. And now I've doubled my 3rd. This is like the one exception where you can double the 3rd instead of doubling the root. When it's a 6th chord coming after a 5 chord in this deceptive progression. Now in minor key, it works a little different in the sense that 7 always goes to 1, even if it's not in even if it's in an inner voice, it has to go to 1. 7 has to go to 1. So say we're in C minor here, and we got our 5 chord going to our 6th chord, which is now major 6. So G is going to A flat. So we have G, B natural, D, because remember 7 in minor is raised. And then A flat, C, E flat. Got root to root in our bass, and then I'm going to voice this out. We'll put the soprano on the leading tone for now. You can see that. Do the alto to G, and the tenor to D. Alright? Bass is moving up by step. Top 3 voices all move down. So B moves down to A flat. D, I don't have to write it. G moves down to E flat, and D moves down to C. A flat, C, E flat. Besides B, scale degree 7 in the key of C minor, not going to 1, what other error occurred in my soprano by doing this? It's a little bit trickier to find. Let's see if I'm going to find it.
Is it a direct octave?
Nope. That would have to be the bass moving in the same direction.
Oh, yeah.
It is a little bit trickier to find, especially because we got to remember what notes are in our key signature. And again, I'm only looking at my soprano part. We got B natural. What kind of A is this? A flat. What's the distance from B to A flat? Augmented second. Augmented second. No augmented intervals at all. So in a minor key, if you go from 7 to 6 or 6 up to 7, right now we're using that harmonic minor scale, and that's the only minor scale we're using. Again, we're really limited. There are other ways you could have raised the A to an A natural, and then we avoided it, but that would mean that we're using a different minor scale. Right now, we're only using harmonic minor for our melody, so it's just kind of a built-in augmented second that we can't avoid. So the only way we can avoid it is if we follow the rule of 7 going to 1, 7, then B leads up to C, which then gives us 2 C's and 1 A flat. So 1 root, 2/3, but this is the one exception again to the rule of always doubling the root, where you can get away with doubling a third instead. This is a 5 to 6. Now, when the 7 is in an inner voice, say like we had in a major key, does that make a difference? Does that change things? So we have B natural here, so G and B. We have our bass moving up by step, top 3 voices move down. Alright. Is there anything wrong here? 7 should go to 1, but it's in an inner voice. So, like I just said earlier, it's in an inner voice, that's okay, it doesn't have to go to 1. So is there anything wrong with B going down then to the A flat?
Didn't you just say in a minor key it has to go up?
It does, why? What's wrong with B going down to A flat? I still have my augmented second there, yes, I feel like I didn't fix that rule or that problem, so B has to go up to C, I don't really have a choice here. 7 always has to go to 1 in minor key, even if it's in an inner voice. In a major key though, if I have 7 in an inner voice, it doesn't have to, like you kind of sidestep that, it doesn't have to go to 1. If it's in the soprano, 7 always has to go to 1. Well, there's a lot to kind of take in. They give you some examples here in the book. So in the key of G, we have our 5 chord going to our 6 chord, which means a D major chord going to a E minor chord. D, D, F sharp, A. F sharp is our leading tone in the key of G. So F sharp is in an alto, it moves up to G. So we get E, B, and 2 G's, triple or double the third. That's okay, instead of doubling the root. So it's an inner voice, it still goes up, that's okay. It doesn't have to though. In minor, we got the same voicing, D, E, F sharp, A. F sharp is our leading tone. D, F sharp does have to go up to G. E flat, G, E flat. Here's another major key, D, E, F sharp, A. Here, what we do is we don't follow the tendency. Instead of F sharp going up to G, it goes down to the E, which gives you 2 E's, a G, and a B, double the root, and we can carry on. What we can't do again is when the leading tone in a minor key doesn't resolve up to 1, instead you have it going down, you always wait in an augmented second. But the only time this ever occurs is in a deceptive progression. Any other time you have stepwise motion with the bass moves up by step, bass moves down by step, the top 3 voices move opposite the bass, and you're good to go. So the only time that you have to worry about it is when it's a 5 to 6 progression. So that's where like a red flag should come up. Alright, I'm moving by step, oh, this is a 5 to 6 progression, red flag goes up. So that kind of, well, questions about what I just discussed?
5 to 3, none of this applies, 'cause it's not
5 and
stepwise.
3 would be down a third, so you'd have 2 common tones, you won't even have to worry about it.
stepwise, so 5 to 4, the rules apply.
Yeah, just stepwise, like, bass moves down, all their voices are gonna move up. Don't even have to, like, nothing else, just keep going after that.
The 3 to 4, also stepwise, because it doesn't involve a fifth, so just like the chord.
Right. Exactly. Other questions? All right. Now, let's take a look at the homework that we have.
It's a lot of small things. I feel like the biggest thing that makes it difficult is because there's so many things to memorize.
It is, but it's also kind of straightforward. I mean, you're still only dealing with 3 notes.
Right.
So, yeah, there are a few things that you have to watch out for. Yeah.
So, if you're in a 5 and you go to something other than 1, it's a deceptive progression. But these rules only apply to a particular type of deceptive progression, 5 to 6.
Which is the most common type of deceptive progression. But every once in a while you come across, like, where a 5 doesn't go to 1, doesn't go to 6, it goes somewhere else.
Which is 4.
Yeah, that would be
Which is
deceptive.
the normal rule, which is stuff.
All right, let's look at number 1. Number 1 of our homework.